Growing up as a kid, I always loved Marvel Comics, and I even loved the new MCU movies as well. I especially loved Jessica Jones, and I always said that if I ever knew her in another life that I'd become her soulmate and her boyfriend. I would even become her husband because I love her that much. I was always good man. I always did my best to help people. My name is Jonas Morales, and I was just a regular guy on his way to work. I'm a social worker, and I'm also a doctor and a former combat medic in the military, but nowadays I'm just a civilian obsessing over yet another issue of Marvel Comics. I often read all those comics and I loved every one of them. I read every word as if it were gospel, though memorizing every detail was always a problem for me considering my busy life and schedule. One day I was reading an issue of Jessica Jones on a park bench when a mugger approached me with a gun, and I didn't notice him at first while I was still reading my Jessica Jones comic book, and then he said in his English accent, "Nice comic you got there, mate." And then I looked up and I saw a gun and I said, "Oh shit, what the hell?" And the English guy said, "Glad I got your attention, mate, now hand over your wallet." Immediately I didn't like him because he kinda looked and sounded like Zebediah Kilgrave, and I hated that guy, and I said, "Dude, I don't carry any money when I'm in the park. I don't even carry my wallet on me." And the English mugger said, "Bullshit, everyone carries a wallet on them." And I said, "I don't, for obvious reasons. I live in New York City, so I never carry my wallet on me around here." And then I police officer and I shouted, "Help, please help." But before the police officer ran over, the guy fired a shot and hit me in the chest, fatally wounding me, and by the time the policemen got me help it was already too late. I crossed over into another world because I was rewarded by God, and he told me that I would be reborn as a powerful superhuman in the world of Marvel, and I would be reborn as the lover and soulmate of Jessica Jones. I was reborn with all the powers of the One Above All, and all the powers of Saitama, and all the powers of the Dragon Ball Z characters, and I would be completely immune to mind control because of the powers cosmic. I would also be reborn as a powerful mutant with the powers to copy anyone's abilities permanently. I was given all these powers as a reward for saving a lot of people in my previous life with medical expertise as a doctor, and for that I was also granted a way to be with Jessica Jones at a young age. I was reborn as Jessica's next door, and my new name is James Belmont Gray, and I was raised in a family that had the mutant X gene. However, my family looked human, but they all had powers, including my sister Jean Grey, and she would later be recruited by Charles Xavier into his little school. I knew this would happen as I knew everything. Even without my vast knowledge of the Marvel Universe, I knew everything that will happen in the future because of my incredible powers. My parents tried their best to teach me how to properly use my powers, but I was already a genius and I already knew everything. Thanks to me having all the powers of the One Above All, I became a young teenager, and it what seemed like a blur of time where I just dominated everything and I succeeded in everything, and Jessica Jones even became my girlfriend at a very young age. I was always there for her, especially when she needed it the most, and I even went with her and her family the day of that tragic car crash that killed her and her family. But unlike her, I remembered everything they did to me. I saw it all, and I was the one that rescued me and Jessica Jones from that place as I made the doctors take us all back to the hospital they were supposed to send us to in the first place. Jessica opened her eyes for a little bit and she said, "James," and I said, "Don't worry my love, I won't let anything bad happen to you." And I made those terrible doctors take us back to the hospital they took us from, and I made sure nothing bad happened to Jessica. I stayed with her in the hospital for days right beside her bed, and I kept her company, and Dorothy Walker came to adopt her, but I made sure I never lost contact with Jessica Jones. Even before she went home with the Walker family, she told me to find her, and I said I will, and then I found her at the address I knew well from the comic books and the TV series. Apparently she didn't leave our neighborhood. Her adoptive mother Dorothy Walker decided to stay in that same house, and I was so happy about that because I got to be with her, and as the years passed we grew closer to each other, and Jessica Jones now knew of all my powers, and I told her that I'm a special type of person. I'm a metahuman with a special gene called the X gene. I'm an omega level mutant and you're a enhanced super Jessica Jones. You're kind of like me yourself, but since I'm with you nothing bad will ever happen to you my love. We can be superheroes or P.I.